The human toll of coronavirus has been devastating, and while the loss of life is of course the greatest tragedy, industries around the globe have also screeched to a halt. The restaurant industry in particular has been crippled by government-enforced closings, and right now countless servers and bartenders and kitchen staff are out of work trying to figure out how to make next month's rent. Many of our neighborhood jewels that have closed temporarily will never open. Hello and welcome to the GZERO World podcast. And here you'll find extended versions of the interviews from my show on public television. On today, I speak to restaurateur Danny Meyer, who as CEO of the Union Square Hospitality Group has founded some of the most successful restaurants in New York City. He also came up with a little fast casual joint you may have heard of called Shake Shack. Let's get to it. Danny Meyer, head of the Union Square Hospitality Group and founder of a little place you might have heard of called Shake Shack. So good to be with you, Danny.
Hi, Ian.
So much to talk about, none of it easy right now. I want to start big picture. Estimates I'm hearing, latest, that's going to cost your industry $225 billion over the next 3 months alone. How do you even wrap your head around that? How are you thinking about the impact on restaurants right now?
I am having an impossible time wrapping my head around almost any number I hear or read about on a daily basis. I'm doing the best job I can to wrap my head around our own company, and it's tough. You go from X amount of revenue to practically zero revenue. The only reason we have any revenue today is that we continue to cook some meals for Delta Airlines first class transcontinental passengers. And that show goes on. And other than that, every single one of our restaurants is closed. And the question that we're all looking at and thinking about is, how do we get to the other side of this whenever it's over, which obviously nobody knows when that's going to be. We're in a lot of different businesses, which I always thought was a good kind of diverse shopping cart. But let's put it this way. A big part of our income are events. Obviously, they're all closed. A big part of our income is catering, done. A big part of our income is sports. We're in 4 different ballparks for baseball, and we're done. That's all gone. And governments are wisely saying people should not gather right now. That's what restaurants do at their best. That's done.
Even once the pandemic is over, or once we're allowed to go back into the restaurants, you're going to need at least a month to re-recruit and rehire your employees. Why does it take so long?
You know, a lot of people think that you should just be able to turn on the lights and turn on the gas stoves and you've got a restaurant. But you got to think about a restaurant almost as if it's a team. A hospitality team takes time to warm up and learn to play together and work together and remember how to do it. My guess is in my business, where we've got a number of different restaurants, we will probably end up starting with 1 or 2 of them and learn how to do it.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what you think the industry needs from government right now. What kind of leadership, what kind of message, and what kind of behavior, what kind of action?
Well, I think that in any situation, great leadership is a combination of reality and hope. And I think people do need to understand the reality of what's going on in a health crisis way and what are the most strategic things we can all do to bring that to the quickest possible close, painful as they are. We also know that the reality is that all those things add up to a really crazy economic situation that is just as bad economically as the health crisis is health-wise. And in our industry, it's staggering. It's just absolutely staggering how many people are being laid off right now. I would want to make sure that that workforce was ready to come back to work emotionally, physically, that they had a house. Or, think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of applies right here. Did they get evicted? They sure better not have. Did they lose their health care? They sure better not have. Could they put food on their table? They sure better have. If that workforce can come back to work when the green light goes on, and then this is the crucial next part, will there be businesses left standing to employ those people? Because, there's a lot, you can't just freeze time. You could cut 100% of your payroll, awful as that is, and you still have obligations. You still have to pay the landlords. I haven't seen a whole bunch of landlords saying, I'm going to give you a holiday from your rent till this is done. I haven't heard the utility companies saying, I'm going to give you a holiday from paying for the gas and electricity till this is done. And so it would be one thing if someone were to say, we could get through this in a health way if you just keep people away from people. I'd sign up for that. And then if they were to say, and it's going to take 4 months, and for 4 months you're going to have zero profits, I could sign up for that too. If there were a way to come up with the economic and political means by which to create that, then what that would mean is 4 months from now, you can have your job back because we got a business and we'll put you back to work. And yeah, this will have been an 8-month year or a 7-month year of profitability. That's fine. That's completely fine by me. What's not fine is poof goes the workers and poof goes the businesses. That's not fine.
I mean, right now you hear, of course, the stimulus. There are a lot of people concerned that there's going to be massive giveaways to big corporations, and there's going to be no accountability or responsibility for taking care of the people. What do you think, if any, sorts of restrictions should be placed on the recipient companies of that bailout, of which your company may well end up being one, to help ensure that the taxpayers feel like this is equitable?
Well, I think the key thing is that if a business is receiving any of the funding themselves, that there is a commitment to be in business and to be the employer that they once were. I think that if you're putting any of that money in your own pocket and you're not hiring back people, then it will have been for naught. So, Ian, one of the things I'm trying to look at is what happened in New Orleans post-Katrina, because I think there's got to be some analogy here. If you think about it, overnight, an entire workforce was sent home. In fact, in that case, a lot of the workforce was actually decimated themselves because their homes, as well as the places they work, were decimated by the flooding. But in this case, it's almost like 100% of our workforce got out before the hurricane came. They're alive, but not well. But what role did government play, A, to take care of people, the workers, and what role did government play in terms of remediating the hurricane damage and the mold so that the businesses could get back? Because it took that system to make it happen. And I feel like this country has had almost like the neutron version of a hurricane, which is we can't see it, but it's there. And somehow I know we'll figure this thing out. I just know in my gut that it starts with a healthy workforce, and then I think businesses committing to hiring that workforce back. My career goes back to 1985, so I've seen a number of good days and I've seen some tough days. 1987, I thought we were out of business for good. I was a 2-year restaurateur. I was 28 years old that year, and I said that's the end with the market crash. And then 1991, after the Gulf War, same thing, recession. 1997, obviously 2001 with 9/11. And each time, what was amazing to me as a restaurateur, each one of those crises felt like the end. Like, how are we ever going to come back from this? People are depressed. It's dangerous. No one's going to come back. And somehow with each one of those crises, we got through it. Like every crisis you face, this is the biggest one because you've never faced this one before. Absolutely. In the city. But we overcame that, and we said the best thing you can do is be with friends, be with people you love. And restaurants uniquely provide that opportunity. So, Ian, here's the thing. Today, I can't tell people to come out to eat. And so I don't have that stimulus. I believe we will get back to this. I really believe we're gonna weather this one. But I do know that a number of restaurants that exist today, there's 660,000 restaurants in America. And while we don't get the attention, say, that the auto industry does or the airline industry does, where everybody can wrap their heads around, oh, these are the 4 major air carriers, or these are the 6 major auto companies, 660,000 disaggregated restaurants.
Yep.
Either the second or third largest employer after government in the United States.
About 10% of employment in the United States is attached to the restaurant.
And this is a big deal. And think about the ripple effects of that in our economy. I'm going to guess I've been hearing anything from 50 to 75% of all restaurants are going to go out of business. I'm having a tough time believing that. But here's what I know. No one's going to stop eating because that's a physiological need. And I also believe that people are not going to stop finding ways to gather because I think that is a deep human emotional need.
You've eliminated tipping from all your restaurants. You were the first to do that in the States, paying your employees a living wage.
And I don't want to be running an organization where half the people are going to fall below the poverty line, some of whom spent their life savings going to culinary school. It just felt completely wrong. So I said, all right, stop it. I can blame the tipping system all I want, or we can actually reject it.
I mean, I wonder, to what extent, I know this is a tough question, do you think that those measures might have made your company more vulnerable, less resilient with this sudden shock?
Oh, I actually think to the contrary, and I'll tell you why. And this gets back to our last conversation about recruiting our team back. So if you take 2,000 layoffs, for example, which happened last week in our company, and let's take the hourly workers who were front of the house employees, who, if they had been tipped employees, their unemployment claim would have been dramatically lower than what our laid off employees are able to claim. Why? Because in this country, there is a separate and lower minimum wage for tipped employees.
Yep.
Dramatically lower in some cases. In some half of the states in this country, the adjusted minimum wage is $2.13 an hour. Imagine going to unemployment and saying, here's my W-2, and I'm really sorry I didn't declare all those cash tips, but here's my W-2. What do I qualify for? And I qualify for some percentage of a W-2 that shows $2.13 an hour minimum wage. Now take an employee who did not work in a tipped house, who was obviously paid an hourly wage as close to what the full tip would have been anyway. Those people are in much better shape. And my guess is for the first time, they now see why this was a really important thing for people to do that.
I want to ask one thing about Shake Shack. I know that the chain is not part of Union Square Hospitality Group. It's run independently, but you founded it. And I'm wondering, just your views on their capacity to stay open throughout this crisis. They can do takeout and delivery. Do you have any sense of that?
Well, I know that Shake Shack is a tremendously athletic group of people, and they're trying everything they can, just like every good business in the country, to keep people employed as long as possible, as safely as possible, and to serve people food. Food provides comfort. And Shake Shack last week announced that 1,000% of all their restaurants whether they happened to be in states that had mandated no gathering or not, would be serving food from the curb only, pre-ordered on their app or however. If people don't have the Shake Shack app, then they could order it, I believe, just by getting out of their car and telling someone on the curb, here's what I want. My view is that these are crazy times and that Shake Shack is adapting as athletically and nimbly as possible, but always, as someone who founded Shake Shack, I know that the culture of Shake Shack is the same as the culture of Union Square Hospitality Group. That's where Shake Shack was born, and that is people first. And we'll see where it goes. I'm guessing that the next days are going to be just as changing of a landscape as the previous days have been.
So what do you think New Yorkers can do and Americans across this country on a personal basis? We've talked about what the government can and needs to do to help all these out-of-work service workers, small neighborhood bars, restaurants over the coming months. They mean so much to the fabric of society. You have any ideas?
Well, once it's safe, and I keep saying once the green light goes on, and God knows what authority is going to say that. I would just say patronize as many places as you can. Look, when we lose a day, we lost the day. It's not like, if I can't get a haircut tomorrow, my barber knows that she's still going to see me 2 days from now or 3 days from now. So she doesn't lose the sale. But when a restaurant or a restaurant worker loses a day, they lost the day. It's gone. And so really the only thing that I could suggest is just remember that. And if you're going to a restaurant that accepts tips, be extra generous when they reopen. If you're going to a restaurant that doesn't accept tips, go there twice as often as you used to. One thing that I know a lot of people are doing, in fact, we've been doing it ourselves, is selling a lot of gift cards, because every time we have some money, it's another reason that we may stay open for another day. Our business may stay open. What we've been doing at the outset, for 1 week, we made a commitment to give 100% of all gift card revenues to a brand new 501c3 employee relief fund that we just set up called Hugs for USHG. I personally made a commitment to take my entire compensation and contribute that to the employee fund, as did 100% of the C-level members of our executive team. And I feel really, really grateful about that.
So maybe one question before we wrap up, Danny, about just society at large. I mean, we've talked so much about the restaurant industry. The other people, of course, that are being affected by it are the people that patronize the restaurants. And now, Americans across the country, half of the country right now, are in self-isolation. And for at least a matter of weeks or months, it seems like. What do you think we should do to replace the companionship, the social belonging that restaurants have been providing us every day?
Smile a whole lot more. I keep trying to remind myself. My wife reminds me of that all the time. These are days when there's a lot of bad news, there's a lot of scary news, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear. And I do think that, the root of the word hospitality is actually hope. And those of us in this business cannot wait to get back to serving that hope.
Be well, and thanks for the strong.
I cannot wait
leadership.
to share a meal with you. I cannot wait.
Looking forward to it, Danny.
Okay.
Be good.
That's it for today's edition of the GZERO World Podcast. Like what you've heard? I hope so. Come check us out at gzeromedia.com and sign up for our newsletter, Signal.
You're listening to the GZERO World with Ian Bremmer podcast, your weekly geopolitical deep dive into the world's biggest news stories, featuring in-depth conversations with global leaders and newsmakers. To get more of GZERO's insights on global politics every morning, sign up for our free newsletter, GZERO Daily, at gzeromedia.com.